Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Tuesday Night Live podcast from the range with your host, John G. Johnson.
Hello, folks. How y'all doing this evening? It's John, the firearms instructor, and welcome to our Tuesday Night Live here at the range. Welcome to March already. I can't believe it, right? It went so fast. You know the drill. If you're on here, go ahead and comment and let me know who you are and where you are. Give me somebody a comment. Let me know you can hear me. Let me know you can hear what's going on over here. I appreciate it very much. We've got a great show for you this evening. There's a lot of stuff we're going to cover. We have another camera that we're going to show this evening, and it is Mr. Plastic Gun camera. As you can see, a little bit over the edge thing, so it'll be kind of cool. But we've got a nice little show for you. And it's Bear. Bear can hear me. Beautiful day in Cape Coral. Yes, sir, Bear. Thank you very much for being here, my friend. I appreciate you very much. Hope everything's going wonderful for you. As we talk about this show tonight, we want to cover a lot of different stuff. I did a drop today from our YouTube channel about malfunction drills, so this is a little bit about that. The actual topic this evening is the 10 common handgun problems and fixes. And it has to do with accuracy, and it has to do with fundamentals, and it has to do with recoil management. Those are all things that have to be done, but we got to figure out what to do with the weapon when we have some kind of malfunction as well. So I'm going to explain malfunction drills for you tonight, as well as some other stuff. So hopefully you'll sit back, relax, and enjoy this. Don't forget, if you're on the live tonight, don't forget the comments are going to be looked at multiple times tonight. If you have a question or anything else like that, we will go back after the end of the show and answer any comments that I don't answer while the show is going on. As always, every week we take 4 or 5 questions from our YouTube channel. And by the way, if you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We would appreciate that very much. We have been very fortunate that people are starting to really hit our YouTube channel. My not to talk finances or anything else like that, but things are starting to really move on it, and it's because of people like you that follow me. These lives only get so many views because of the timing of them, but this same live last week that we got probably 30 to 35 people who went on and off of it all during the show. It gets 400 to 700 views after the fact, and that's kind of exciting for them because most of those people are viewing it for the very first time. You loyal people that come every 6 o'clock every week, I appreciate that very much. So here's my questions for the week. Now, by the way, guys, if you ask a question and we host it, or we want to show it, it'll be right here on our YouTube channel. It'll be right here on our live, and we'll answer your question for you. So this is from WhoDay3138, and he says, "Thanks, Job. I'm having a trouble with recoil, but I'm trying to shoot better." He says the mechanics have a kick. Now, most of the time, buddy, you are probably trying to hold that weapon with your hands. What I want you to do is start driving the weapon with your pecs. I want you to push and pull on the firearm. This will allow the weapon not to recoil as much. A lot of people try to control the weapon with only hand grips, and that's where we get our muzzle flip and uncontrollable. A canic or any other weapon doesn't kick any harder than anything else unless you're not controlling it properly. So what I'd recommend, Houday, is to hit our channel. I know you've been watching a lot of our stuff. I've seen you common to a lot of our stuff, but I want you to watch a couple of the recoil management ones, and it will explain the driving with your chest muscles, and it'll make you a better shooter. Go ahead and comment when you do this and let us know how it went for you. Thank you for asking a question. We appreciate you very much. Sandlapper Sam asked a question. If you're left eye dominant, do you need to shoot left-handed? No, you don't. All you have to do, Sam, is marry the weapon and the eye together. This is a very misconception thing. I'm left-handed, I need to shoot left eye. Now, that being said, all of you guys need to practice right hand and left hand, because if you don't, sooner or later something's going to happen. You may not have your dominant hand to win the fight, and you need to practice with your non-dominant hand as well. But just marry the weapon and the eye together. So if you're right-handed and left eye dominant, that right hand should be over the left eye, and vice versa. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much for commenting on our channel. And then Doyle Kinnard 3749. What if you're right-handed but left eye? Another right-handed left eye dominant thing. If I could make money on the question of right-handed left eye dominant, left-handed right eye dominant, doesn't matter, guys. Just make sure the weapon is married to the eye. There are plenty of videos on our YouTube channel. I just pulled 3 this week because they're consistently asking me the same questions. So I consistently keep making these videos. What we need to work on is the full fundamentals. We need to work on grip and stance and trigger control and sight picture, and then work on a good trigger engagement that's going to keep you from pulling that trigger to left and everything else like that. And Joe Schnell 5695 7 days ago asked, what if you have balance issues? Well, Joe, what I would tell you is most of the ranges have some kind of plate or desk that you stand in front of. Now, we do this a lot for all of our students. Well, go ahead and place your belly or your hip on that shelf itself, and it may help you balance yourself a little bit more. A lot of times when people are shooting, and older students commonly, they tend to wobble a little bit when they shoot. But if you'll put your body up against the loading table at the range, it definitely will make a difference on your mobility and your balance when you're shooting. And then that is a common problem for seniors when they go to the range. They want to be able to, they can't be balanced very well for some reason or another, especially when they close an eye. And I would recommend putting your body against the loading table. It'll help tremendously and keep you more stationary. Guys, those are the questions for this week. Now, when I answer a question, I let the students know that we're hosting that question and to get them to try it. Now, we actually have another thing called Speak Pipe, and we'd love to have you guys start using that. And that is like a voicemail directly to us, which allows you to make a comment, 90-second comment, for us to play for the masses. And then at the end of it, there it is here. This is called speakpipe.com, John the Firearms Instructor, and it prompts you right to put record, and you just ask the question like you normally would. And then you get 90 seconds, not 91, not 94, just 90 seconds total. And then that is brought over to our system, and we use it in your own words. You're going to ask the questions, and we'll be able to answer those questions for you. All right, speakpipe.com/John the Firearms Instructor. All right, that was a great questions. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate you answering those for me. Asking those for me. Answering for me. It's late day, I'm telling you that. It's late. It's late. All right, so inconsistency. The common handgun problems and how to fix them. Number one is inconsistency accuracy. There's a lot of things that happen when you are inconsistent or you don't have proper grip or you just have no real education on how to hold a pistol. And I'm going to show you a couple things. By the way, guys, this is a rubber gun. It is not loaded for the powers to be. It can't shoot a bullet. It can't do anything, but it is on camera. And we just tell you that for the powers to be that's up there. What we need to think about mostly, now we have a group that's doing a beta test for us. We're putting together a online course that is student-led. You get the course itself, you buy the course, and you take a full week training class with videos and everything else involved. And we got a group that we're working on now, about 14 students throughout the United States and some local here, that are working on getting better at the range. And we're putting together our top secret stuff to make each student become more proficient. And the majority of the time when someone's shooting a pistol, they are looking over the pistol, not through the pistol. Let me kind of explain to you what I'm talking about here. What tends to happen is you have a, let's see if I can get this in front of the camera. There we go. You have the barrel here and your sights are here. Now if I take this and put it directly on the target and I put my barrel there, barrel assembly, directly in the center of the X, I want you to visually see that the target, the gun, is above the X. So if we were to engage the trigger properly, that bullet does not fly in a straight line. It flies in an arc. And the chances of it impacting in the high quadrants here of this target are common, or are more likely to happen. But what tends to happen is people put this in the center of the target and then pull the trigger, which causes it to go low and left. So what we're looking to do is get a consistent point of aim. And what this means, if I can show you this, is we want to make sure that our sights are directly lined up. I'm trying to do this with the camera. Lined up in the center. Just like that. Let me get that camera to where I need to be. Just like that. If we engage that trigger 100% proper and don't get any pulls or jerks or anything else like that, well, most likely you're going to impact directly in that circle or just a little bit below that, right in that box or a little bit below that box, and that'll get you in that center of the target. And this terminology is called 6 o'clock hold. There are 4 different kind of aims. Most people point shoot in a high defense situation. Some people have it really low. I want you to be, some people do center target shooting, which would impact higher in the target, but the 6 o'clock hold gives you consistent point of aim. Not only consistent point of aim, but you're going to see that sight system more level. What we think about mostly, and this is where the challenges happen, is most people have that front post low and your back post high. And if you could see, you got to see all 3. You got to see the one down there at the X, and you have to see the ones in the back. 2 in the back, 1 in the front, lined up, negative space positive, and then you've got a good consistent trigger engagement. You're going to be right there. This is common for people, but most of the time when someone's using a pistol, they're not leveling it out, or they're showing too much guns. Do you see that right there? That would be high post. Front is high, back is low. And do you see that yellow from the post all the way to the back? That has you looking over the pistol. How many of you go to the range, put the weapon out in front of you, and dip your head to get to it. There becomes one of our issues. When we dip our head to line up the pistol, we're inaccurate at that point in time because we have changed the angle of our eye versus where the gun is. Or we take the weapon and we use our wrist to aim the pistol, which is causing a lot of the inaccuracy as well. So we want to keep the weapon as level as possible. And then at the point where we want to aim the pistol, we don't aim with our wrist, we aim with our waist. Imagine if you had a solid pole between your hips and you bend on that pole to make your arms stay level. Put the weapon out in front of us and bend at our waist to aim the gun, not our wrist. Consistent point of aim is probably one of those things that causes some of the lowness. Second thing that causes it is where the gun is over your dominant eye. And this is very common for people who are standing in some kind of mixture of a weaver and an hostile stance. It starts with an I apologize. But you got to be in that stance. Most people don't do that very well. They either put 1 foot back, 1 foot back, and 1 foot forward, and that kind of puts you at an angle, if that makes sense. We want to get our feet shoulder width apart. We want to be bouncing on our knees as much as possible. We want to bend on that pole, transfer our weight to our toes, and then keep that weapon in our line of sight. And it makes it so much easier for us to control the recoil that way. Then from there, we need to get a good grip, and that grip shows very easily. I'm going to show it to you here in the camera. Rubber gun, guys. I have to say that for the powers to be, guys, not because of you, but other people who watch these shows. They can physically, they think they're being unsafe with a firearm. They can do something about it, and a rubber gun can't do anything, so that's kind of what it is. Let's get this camera up a little higher. There we go. So what we want to think about, we're holding on to a pistol, we need to make sure that the weapon is high on the tang right up here. We want to be up there as much as we can. We want to fill that void with our other hand. I've showed you this multiple times. Lock out those thumbs the best you can. Get that good solid grip best you can. And then if you don't want any gappiness here, and that's kind of the thing that we want to carry, like that right there. See with that thumb here and this thumb here? That gap back there would cause us problems. We're going to close that hand in there to make sure we got a good solid grip in there. Once we got that grip, we're going to level out that pistol and cut those shots as slow as possible. Last week I did a video in regards to pressing the trigger and not pulling the trigger. Makes a big difference on what we do with the weapon. When you pull the trigger, you're going to pull the weapon. No question. When you press the trigger, then you're trying to keep that weapon as level as possible. And that makes so much difference for us. There's a lot of stuff in shooting a pistol that we take for granted or don't understand, but at the end of it, it surely makes a difference when our accuracy comes in. So inconsistent accuracy is one of the things that most people have a challenge with, and there's so many different things that can cause it. Problems, shots all over the place. Most likely you're not doing a consistent point of aim. How do you fix that? Is you got to fix your grip, you got to fix your stance, you got to fix your sight alignment, your trigger control, and the follow through. Spend enough time dry firing with a weapon, then you start understanding how much travel that trigger has in it to keep you not guessing when the weapon's going to cut. You really should know when the weapon's going to fire in the beginning. Just apply pressure until it cuts. The challenge with most students is they get it back and crank on it, or they slap it, or they do some kind of crazy thing that causes so much more trigger manipulation, which in turn affects your accuracy. Guys, where do you think your accuracy rate is? Go ahead and comment below. Let us know if you, on a scale from 1 to 10, where do you think you are on the scale? My personal opinion, myself, I'm somewhere between an 8 on some days and a 7 or 8. I don't believe I'm over a 9. Sometimes I get lucky in front of a student and impress them, but somewhere between the 8 and the 6 is where I am. Some days I'm a little better, some days I'm a little worse. And you don't need to be an expert marksman, guys. The vital triangle starts at the shoulders and goes to the groin. When we do these videos, we do these shootings here in the store, we do these videos. I promised many years ago, I do not edit any of my shots because I don't want you to think that I'm an expert marksman. I don't need to be an expert marksman. I need to be able to shoot the vital triangle and win the battle. And that's what I'm teaching you guys as much as possible. All right, so the second thing that happens to most students is when they get to the range is they're having some kind of malfunction on the pistol. And it can sometimes scare the hell out of them. I know new students, when they hear a click and it doesn't go bang and they're expecting it to go bang, they put that gun down really quick. Because they don't know what they've done. They don't know if it's the pistol's done, or they have no idea. So we need to kind of figure out these manipulations, figure out what's causing them, and solve it. That's all the beta class is all about. This master class will work with all these students. We've given them a couple weeks to work on certain things, but we're trying to identify the problems and solve them. We're trying to do that, and the more we can do that, the easier it becomes. But we have to identify what the problem is to begin with. So number one is failure to feed. And these are very common things that happen to new students. They take a magazine and they load it as best they can. Some magazines now are easier to load than others. Then they take it, put it into the weapon, and then slowly begin to rack the slide. And they pull it back really slow, and they let it go really slow. And the the weapon doesn't go in the full battery. So there it sits. The gun is not closed. I think I have a picture of not in battery. Real quick, let me show you. This will help you see it a little bit better. Here we go, failure to battery. So what happens is if you look at this Glock picture here, look at the front there. See how that barrel is showing and the slide is not all the way forward? Well, this is a failure to feed. And what happened in this case, I don't know, but I can almost tell you if you look in this area right here, between the two, where the ejection port is, there's that big area right there, and it is not. And so if you were to go pull this trigger, that weapon would not fire because it is not in battery. This is very common. It can happen when you load a magazine and don't seat the rounds. Let's see if I can get me on full screen here. It can happen. In other words, if we have the magazine itself, let me get here. With the magazine itself, and when you go to put the mag in, it's not all the way in. See how that gap is behind the magazine there? You want to make sure you always seat that. So the easiest way to do that is to take the magazine and tap it in your hand to make sure they're all seated forward. That's a good way to make sure they're in there. But another way to make sure you're doing it all right is stick to 5 rounds at a time. It makes a big difference on your accuracy. If you think about it, this magazine I have in my hand is a Glock 19 magazine and it holds 15 rounds. Well, most new students can't control the weapon 5 rounds, let alone 15 rounds. And myself even, when I get to high capacity, over 10 rounds or more, I really have to slow down my shooting to be proficient. The more I get loosey-goosey, the more inaccurate I am. So what can we do to solve that? Well, we need to make sure the magazine is seated properly. We want to make sure when we stick the mag in, there's another thing can happen, is that when you put your magazine in the weapon, it doesn't click. So when you put a magazine in a pistol, you always want to grab on the bottom of it to make sure that it's seated into the gun. I always tell students, when you hear it, you'll hear an audible click and then pull on it, and then when you go to rack it, it's there. But if you just push it in and don't hear the click and you go rack it, it's going to close, but it's not going to strip the bullet off because the magazine hasn't got deep enough into the well of the gun. You know, firearms are tools, and tools need to be lubricated. Now, I'm not too crazy about getting them super wet or anything else like that, but we have slides, we have springs, we have assemblies, we have ejection ports, all the stuff that happens in shooting a pistol. There is powder that's being burned off while it's shooting while it's the gases that make the weapon, make the projectile goes out the front of the barrel. The moment that that powder becomes a gas, there's particles that get lodged in the weapon itself, and we need to clean it once in a while. And this can cause a lot of the problems with jamming, or magazines not fitting properly, or under lubrication and all that stuff like that. Gun cleanness. I kind of are in the group of when I buy a pistol for the very first time, I do not clean them. I do not recommend my students to clean them. The manufacturer recommends you clean them, but if I have to clean the weapon before I shoot it, then I've never had to do that with a Glock. I never had to do that with Smith, Taurus, Ruger. Some of the high-end products, maybe, but these tools, these weapons, I recommend 500 rounds before we clean them. That's going to really give it a test to make sure that everything is copacetic. And then from there, you want to clean it. And then after that, every time you shoot it, you want to clean it. You don't want to go the 500 rounds. Most people don't clean their guns properly anyways. But at the end of it, you want to have some lubrication. Majority of the time, people bring pistols in for training classes. I have to bring a can of oil back there and use them on a regular basis because they're just dry. They're just not. You don't get oil when it's sitting in a bag in a closet for 3 years. So number 3 is a failure to eject or a stovepipe. Now, stovepipes are kind of one of those weird things. It happens a couple different ways. Let me show you a stovepipe, because you're going to say, hey, that's a stovepipe. It looks just like one. Let's see. Stovepipe. Oh, did he put one up there? Yeah, hang on 1 second. I know I have one. 1 second. Let me add one real quick, if you don't mind. 1 second here. I'll be right back. Boom. Image. Boom. There we go. Let's go. Save image. And then we'll call it stovepipe. I hear the Alex Trebek song. Do 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 do. I'm on the clock here. See if I can get this real quick. Okay, there we go. Go back to my thing here. Go back to StreamYard. Go back to add overlay. Oh, I'm almost there, guys. Just give me a second here. Oh, there it is. Load. And time. All right, that is a stovepipe. That happens a lot with new students, because what they're doing is they're putting their finger on that slide, the thumb on that slide, slowing that slide down, and it's causing that bullet to rise up and it's sticking right there. Now the cool thing about a stovepipe is it most likely is going to be high enough that your other bullet that's in the magazine will go into the barrel, but we're going to have to get that one out. So the easiest way to do that with the firearm in your hand is just slap it, just like that, slap it, and it'll pop directly out back to you. Stovepipes happen a lot. Very common. It could be a dry weapon. It could be you're thumbing on the weapon enough. You're slowing that slide down. You could have the magazine not loaded exactly perfect. There's a lot of different things that can cause it. But the idea of this tonight is for you to identify what they are, for you can see them and see what the cause of them. This is a failure to eject. There's a lot of things can cause it, but having a firm, solid grip. You've heard the term limp wristing before. In shooting, what that means is you're not controlling the recoil, and you're getting recoil flip or muzzle flip. And remember, these overall weapons need to have the slide in the frame stay as level as possible. When the pistol is in an angle of up angle, then it's fighting gravity, and that becomes a challenge for us as well. So the more we drive on the back of the more we use our pecs, gentlemen, or women, the more we use our back muscles to control the weapon, it keeps the muzzle down and level, and you're not going to get that flipping motion that most people get. Keep in mind, one of the tells that you're having a muzzle flip problem is when an empty casing comes back and hits you. If an empty casing comes back and hit you, you are doing something to cause the front post to flip. And as it flips, that's going to cause the inertia of that to go in a different direction. We don't want it to go flippy. We want it to go directly out of the weapon properly. And the more we go out of the weapon properly, the less chance of any kind of failure to eject with a stovepipe would happen. All right, that's a good one. That was a good one. All right, so how many of you have seen a stovepipe or had a stovepipe happen to you? Now, how do we get this out of there where you can slap it with your hands? Anytime you have a malfunction, the very first thing we need to try to do is the thing called a tap, rack, and bang. And this is kind of one of those deals, but you don't want to do the rack, tack, and bang inside your home. But when you're at the range, what we end up doing is we tap the back of the magazine, then we rack it to get it out of there, and then that should put a new one in, and then we can go ahead and go bang and test it. Now, if you go bang and it clicks, then you got to get everything out again. What we're trying to do is get that malfunction out of the gun as quick as possible. And that tap, rack, bang is a good overall testing drill for you to do. And you could have your buddy put a dummy round. Dummy rounds just look like regular rounds, guys. All they are is inert. They don't have any powder in them. This is a great thing to put in your range bags. It gives you the ability to practice with them. It does save on the firing pin. Semi-automatics, you really don't have a problem dry firing, but majority of the time it's got a plastic insert where the primer would be, and it would not affect a firing pin at all. So not a bad product to put in. Inexpensive. I think I've just bought 50 of them from Amazon for like $10 or something like that. It's pretty cheap. All right, failure to fire. Failure to fire is one of those things when the gun is in a situation where it's not in battery, like we told you before, or you could have bad ammo. I've seen that. where you go and you engage the trigger and it goes click. Now, there is a thing called a stovepipe, a hang fire, a hang fire. Very unlikely that it would happen, but in the old days when guys were loading the rounds themselves, when you heard click, it was like what do I do now? Because is it just burning and it's not yet fired yet? So you don't want to set that gun until you know. So if you hear a click like that and you want to get the magazine out first and rack the slide, and then look at the primer itself and see if it got hit. And if it got hit, it'd make an indentation. If it did not get hit, then something's going on with your firing pin. But that is something that happens. You can still do the rack tap and re-engage. A bad round, inspect for a firing pin extraction. That's one of those things that it'll tell you. We use a manufacturer here that makes our ammo, and very unlikely does that happen. Most of your major manufacturers don't have that problem either. But I can tell you that most ranges don't allow reloads, and that's where most of the issues are. When someone reloads a magazine and has maybe double powder on one, not paying attention. Most of the stuff we do legally, we have to use a manufacturer that has all the licenses and insurance for all that stuff. So that's another good one, failure to fire. That happens a lot. It scares the hell out of a lot of people because when they're new, they don't know exactly what to do. Pretty much you need to get the magazine out of there as quick as you can and be able to calmly control the situation. All right. So the next one is failure to return the battery. I kind of showed you that one already, but it's important that you see it because it is something that happens to a lot of times when you're looking at something. You can just kind of get the idea that that is one that happens a lot when people are lightly racking the slide. This is not a piece of crystal. You need to rack the hell out of it, let it go. When you hear a true racking of the slide audibly, it comes off and it sounds so much different than a standard old limpy, crazy racking of the slide thing. Excuse me, I'm getting carried away with this camera thing here. You'll hear it sounds a lot different, and it makes sure that when you see that or you hear that, it makes a big difference on how it feels in your hand too. Almost when you rack it properly, it feels like you've racked it properly, and it becomes so much easier. And that return to battery is very easy to see because the slide itself is not lined up to the back of the bottom. The top slide is not lined up to the bottom slide, and you can almost see the areas where it's not there. It's where the slide fully doesn't close. Keep your gun clean, lubricated, and check for your recoil springs. Slow slide manipulation drill will help you out tremendously. It'll show you exactly what you're doing. We need to rack that slide back. A lot of people rack it back and do not let it go. That's the best way to do it. I tell students all the time, imagine the slide's 500 degrees, and the moment you pull it back, you let it go. Let the springs do its work, and you'll audibly hear that round go in, and it makes it so much easier for you. Number 6 is not letting the magazine seat properly. This is very common when someone pushes a magazine in the weapon but doesn't have or didn't hear the click. When you put a magazine in your weapon, you should hear it click. If it did not click, then it most likely is not seated properly. What is the problem with not having the magazine seated properly? One, with first recoil you have on that, or first bump you have on that, most likely the magazine is going to fall out. 2, when you go ahead and rack the slide, it's not going to strip the bullet off the mag. So we got to make sure it's seated. That's going to help us. So what I'd recommend you do is when you're putting it in there and you're making that whole racking system, I want you to slam that magazine in there. I want you to rack that slide like you own it, like it owes you money. And that's what you want to do on a regular basis, because at that point in time, that's the things that make that thing proper. You shoot a Glock long enough and you slam that magazine in, that slide's going to fall forward just perfectly. It does it almost automatically. Matter of fact, when you start seeing that happening, that gun's broke into a point where it's ready to be run now. And you slam that magazine in, that slide's going to go forward. That means you don't have to do any kind of other manipulation. Once you get going, once you shoot enough rounds, about 200 to 400 rounds out of a Glock, it'll close on you just like that. If you were really putting the magazine in. Magazine won't lock in. Insert the magazine firmly. Check for obstructions or worn out mags. And do some speed drills. You'll get it figured out. Okay, the next one is a double feed. Now this is common. This happens a lot. Let me show you a picture of it. And what it is it's a combination of the original bullet you just fired trying to get out of the trying to get out of the ejection port, and the new bullet trying to get into the barrel. And this is what it looks like. Comment below if you've ever had one of these. They're not the easiest thing in the world to get out. What you have here is you have the magazine, and remember, a magazine is a spring, and it is pushing on the bullet that's going into the barrel, as well as the spring that pushes the slide back is pushing forward now on the top casing that's trying to get out of the gun. If you tried right now with this pistol to pull out your magazine, it would not work. So we got to get the magazine out first. And that becomes one of those issues that we have as a problem. So what we have to do is we have to get the slide back to take the pressure off of the two bullets. Once we've taken the slide back just a little bit, we can just push the magazine button and that magazine would fall directly out. And then from there we could go ahead and rack the other one out of there. And most likely both would fall pretty easy. Because the one that's trying to go into the barrel right now, the one on the bottom, is half in and half out of the magazine. So we got to kind of figure out what we're going to do there, because it won't go into the magazine with that casing there. And that casing, the top casing, is being grabbed by the extractor, and that's going to cause a little bit of a binding issue. So we got to work on those as best we can to get to see what it is. Now, what causes this? There's a lot of things that could cause this. I already told you, limp wristing, or slowing down the slide with your thumb, or a dirty gun, or any of that stuff can cause it. It doesn't really matter what causes it. We just got to be able to fix it. And the easiest fix for this is to take the pressure off of the slide by pulling it back. And then once it's back, the pressure's off the slide, then we want to get that magazine out. Once we got that magazine out, it should fall directly out if you don't have the pressure. And then from there, you want to double rack it to make sure that there's no bullets anywhere in the ejection area there. And you're ready to get back in the fight. Pick the magazine up, stick it back in the weapon, and rack it. Let's go. Careful touching that slide. You can get a lot of issues where muzzle flip happens, limp wristing can cause it, dry gun can cause it. There's a lot of different stuff. We just need to be figuring out how the hell do we fix it. And fixing it by getting pretty much all of your jams starts with you removing a magazine. It starts with you getting the magazine out of the gun, and it starts with you racking a slide, because we want to verify that we didn't have a round go someplace we didn't want to go. So that's kind of a cool little deal there. 2 rounds trying to get in the chamber at one time. Lock the slide back, drop the mag, clear the chamber, and reload. This is a great drill to show people, not the easiest drill to set up, if that makes sense. That's why when we're instructors, we don't really set up malfunction drills unless we have a true one in the class. Those are the best when we have them in the class, but manufacturers now with firearms and the manufacturers of bullets, it's hard to get a jam to happen 3 or 4 or 5 times. We almost have to set them up just to show people. But having it done real life, it becomes easy. A lot of that stuff is just as you get further and further along, building more and more confidence, half the stuff goes away. I can't remember the last time that I had a personal jam in a weapon. I can remember Tuesday of last week when someone had some issue with their firearm, but most of the time it's just new people being new. You can have all the mishaps in the range you want. You can have the malfunctions. You can have non-racking of the slide. You can have all that stuff because you're at the range. You're able to practice, no issue. We just don't want any of that stuff when we absolutely positively need it. We want to get it all solved. We need to have full 100% trust on any weapon we plan to carry for defensive purposes. Number 8 is recoil management. Recoil management has a lot to do with inaccuracy because we are not controlling that weapon. I mean, you could imagine trying to control a handgun with one hand, you're going to get some muzzle flip. That's what the 2 hands help us tremendously become more proficient. When you drive with your chest muscles, when you grip the gun, when you drive with your pecs, these are all things that are going to keep that gun level. And as the weapon is level, it's going to stay more stationary for us, which in turn will allow our sights to be more stationary, which will allow us to be more accurate with a pistol. A gun that jumps too much makes follow-through shots very difficult, very challenging. To improve your grip, your stance, and choose the firearm and caliber that fits your skills and challenges, that becomes enemy. One of the easiest drills I can give you is the rapid fire control drill. And what we do there is we take 3x5 card. We work 2 spots, 3 spots on a target, white piece of paper, and we start with 1 round in each. 1, 1, 1, and then we do 2, then we do 3, and then we do 4, and they all should be staying in that 3x5 card. Once you start cutting those shots, we need to really concentrate on keeping that weapon level and keeping that trigger engagement to a minimum that's not going to cause manipulation. Anything that causes inconsistency, it's going to be shown very quickly when someone starts slapping the hell out of a trigger. One of the other things that causes a lot of this stuff is misalignment of the trigger, of the sights. A lot of times people look at something and they go, well, I think my sights are where they need to be, or I don't know where my sights need to be. That's another thing that happens to people. They don't really get the full effect of sights until it's one of those things where they go, oh, okay, now I kind of get what he's saying. So what we want to really get our head around and we want to make sure of is that when we're looking through our sights, that we have it lined up where it needs to be. Because the more we have front post high, we're going to shoot high. Front post low, we're going to shoot low. And secondary thing that happens, if the front post is too close to one side or the other, a semi-automatic pistol in the sighting system, once you think what it does, not only does it sight the weapon or levels the pistol, But not only does it level the pistol high and low, it levels the pistol right and left because of the two back posts and the one front post down there and the negative space between the boxes, and that's going to help us tremendously. So we do not want any kind of gappiness to thicker on one side or thicker the other. And the more we're able to visually see that and consistently watch our sight alignment and really work on the vision of it, the easier it becomes. When we are cutting a shot and it's cutting off to the left, it most likely is a mixture of the gun being over your nose and not over your dominant eye and too much finger in the gun. There's a lot of things that cause a lot of that issue. We have to make sure that we understand the manipulation that's happening. And there are plenty of videos on my YouTube channel that will explain it to you. If you're local here, I would love for you to sign up for one of our classes and get you comfortable doing that as well. Number 10 is working on a smooth trigger control. And this is the thing that causes majority of students to have problems with. Let's say you got perfect grip and you have perfect stance and you get almost figured out the sight alignment. The moment you start jerking the trigger, all that shit goes out the window, because the trigger is the most manipulated thing in the handgun, and it causes so many problems for us. So we just kind of got to get our head around this as much as possible. So let me give you my suggestion. And I did a video a week ago, and some of you have watched it. Excuse me, I can take a drink. Some of you have watched it, some haven't. But it's about pressing the trigger. Now, I did a video, and I made ebooks. And speaking of ebooks, I'm going to tell you about those in a little bit. But I've done all this stuff for you guys, but the pressing of the trigger is a cadence. It's a speed. It's how you do it. Think of last time you're at the range. If you get the weapon out in front of you and you slap the crap out of that trigger, you know you're going to manipulate the front of this gun one way or the other. We can't have the weapon bobble. So what I want you to do is I want you to work on spelling the word press. And as you apply pressure to the trigger, that becomes a letter. So if I have the weapon in front of me and I've got it lined up and I got my sights perfect and I begin to engage the trigger, P-R-E-S-S. At that last S, you've been applying pressure to this trigger the whole time. You're not waiting for that last S to engage the trigger. That becomes slapping the trigger again. I want you to apply pressure to the trigger and get it back as slow as you can. And what we're trying to do is take some of the travel out of this trigger, or some of the slack out of this trigger, to get to a point. When I drive a weapon out in front of me, I'm taking some of the slack out of the trigger to begin with. And then what that does for us, it keeps us level when we're running the pistol. Because the moment we cut that weapon and the mag and the weapon itself causes it to go right or left, it's commonly left for right-handed shooters, and its anticipation is what's happening, as well as trigger pull. And that's one of those deals that once you start getting a feel of a good, decent trigger engagement, it makes your game all much better. It helps tremendously. It's like it being on the golf course, and the hole you have to put the ball in is now a 5-gallon bucket instead of being that little cup it normally is. How much better of a golf game would you have? I know I'd have a lot better golf game, you know. But you just got to remember, we have to put as much advantage to us as we can. Because a firearm is a bully. And if you give it something, it's going to take it. So when you don't have proper grip, or you're pulling the crap out of the trigger and you're doing all this stuff and you're trying to figure out what's causing all this, go look in the mirror. It's you. You're causing it. Don't look at the pistol, because the pistol's accurate right out of the box. Nothing you got to do with the pistol. I got so many people come in the range and go, something wrong with this pistol. Can you come back here and help me adjust it? And I take the pistol and I put it out there and I put the target exactly where he had it, where he's shooting all low and left. And I say, you sure it's the pistol? He goes, well, I know how to shoot a pistol. I've been shooting for years. I know how to shoot a pistol. And I go put them right where they need to be. What'd you do? Nothing. I shot the pistol. That's what you did. It's what you're doing. It's what you're trying to do. And you look at their grip, and you look at their stance, you look at all that stuff, and you realize that he was doing it wrong. And that's what was causing it. Shooting is not complicated. I mentioned this many, many times. It's just complex. There's just a lot of little things, man. And each one of them adds or subtracts to our accuracy. So we just got to get them all to be adding to accuracy, not subtracting from accuracy. Okay. So remember, slow, steady, trigger press, and then follow through. How many of you cut the weapon, then look over the pistol to see where you impact? Well, if you're looking over the weapon to see where you impact, you don't trust your sight system. I need you to get yourself in the position where you trust your sight system, knowing that you are hitting where you're aiming. A good drill for you to try is the white paper drill. This week, I want each and every one of you to get out to the range, take a white piece of paper with no markings on it. No markings on it. Here we go. Let's see if I can get this to show you this. No markings on it, and to take your weapon, get a proper grip and get a proper stance and get a proper trigger and just aim at the target. Bang! And cut that shot. And then cut the next shot. And cut the next shot, right? Now you've got the target now. Now I want you to try to put the other one right in that hole. I guarantee you most people, when they shoot the first three, the one in the middle is probably the straightest because it's right in front of you. The one to the right is going to be just a little higher than what you shot. And the one to the left is going to be left to where you shot. And it's very common for students. What we're trying to do is keep that weapon level and make those shots level. You're going to see the manipulation that happens. If you're honest with yourself, you're not shooting where the bullet's not impacting where you're shooting. It's shooting lower than what you're aiming at. And we got to get that, understand what's causing that. And we all know what's causing that is trigger manipulation as much as possible. All right. Okay. Well, that was a mouthful today. So let's go ahead and talk about who's had these problems before. How do you feel about the issues you're having? You can comment below. This target that I have here, if you comment below, I'm going to get you these targets. You can go ahead and say, yes, I want the target. And it's a PDF that we just freely give you to. Just go to our website. You can get it. Or you can get it through and we'll send it to you. It's pretty simple. It's not hard to make that either. I made them all. Our beta group, I'm making targets for these guys as well. It's shooting fundamentals, and the word should be fun in there. Fundamentals, not pain in the asses. And that's what causes most people to not like going to the range, because they can't figure it out themselves. That's what I come in. I do it for you guys. Guys, as a firearms instructor, I started this many years ago to motivate, educate, and entertain. And as I got going, I started seeing there's some value in things that I offer you guys. Right now we have our ebooks They're right there for you. They're on our website. They'll be in the link below in the description of this live, and we've put those books on 25% off. They're normally $3.99, and you get them for $2.99. Now, I want to give you a book for free just for being on this call this evening. All you have to do, guys, is go to my website, firearmstrainingbyjohngjohnson.com. I know it's a mouthful, but they'll be in the descriptions below as well. And then go to our books themselves and pick the one you like. Put it in your cart, put free book at checkout, and then it's yours. No strings attached. Now, if you want to help out a small family-owned business and put a couple more in the cart to support a family-owned business, I'm okay with that, and you should be too. And what are they about? They're about grip, they're about stance, they're about trigger control, they're about sight picture, they're about sight alignment. Everything a new student or an old student needs to know to help you become more proficient with a pistol. Each week we put something together that's going to help you tremendously through our YouTube channel. I'm not saying anything nefarious happens, but some people, if you're watching this tonight, make sure that you are subscribed to our channel. You found it through some way, and I want to make sure. Sometimes something happens and people get unsubscribed. Just make sure you're subscribed before you go. Let's go check out the comments we have up here. Let's see what's up. All right. So let's go back up here. Okay, Bear was here today. Thank you, Bear. Love you. Love you being here. Thank you, Bear. Okay. Rob Barner is from Michigan. Running gun, your feet are never quite centered up. Yeah. That's true. He says, running gun, your feet are never quite centered up. That's true. Grip, yeah. Let's see what he has to say here. Grip, yeah, but the real fight to do is actually worry about it so that why you get into physical memory. Yeah, muscle memory. That's true, Rob. You just got to continuously do it until it becomes second nature to you. Then he said one more. He said, as far as cleaning, we clean the guns always after every use. I'm not saying you don't have to do that. As a firearms instructor, we never stop using them, so it's kind of hard for us to get to that mode. But we tell every student after the first 500 rounds, you need to clean it all the time. The weapons, they are weapons. They are tools, they are equipment that needs to be oiled. So you're not wrong there, Rob. You're not wrong at all, buddy. Then he said one more time, never had a stovepipe, had a light load, light, yeah, that happens. Light strike. Check to make sure the track channel left the barrel. Okay, so what he's talking about, now this can happen. I've seen it happen before. Light strikes are what's called oh shit, I just went brain fart. What it is, the bullet does not have enough powder to get down the barrel. It sounds completely different. It's called a hang fire. And what tends to happen is it goes down the barrel, or squid load is what it's called. I apologize. A squid load. And the squid load is basically under powder bullet. Now this normally happens very unlikely with manufactured rounds. This happens a lot with reloaders. And what happens is they're bullshitting, they're talking, doing something, and they put less powder in one and over powder another one, which is another thing can happen to you. That's why shooting reloads can be somewhat dangerous. That's why most manufacturers don't allow, most guns ranges don't allow reloads. Our manufacturer, he is a true manufacturer, has the equipment, has machines. Nothing touches that until it's boxed up and checked. And that's the beauty of that I like. So conceptually what happens is that bullet gets down the barrel, but not exits the barrel. Now when you hear one of these, it sounds totally different than a real live 9mm shot. So you should identify that automatically. The problem we have is when you let that go down the barrel and it does not exit, and you put another bullet down the barrel fully charged, you've got an explosion that can happen in your hand, and it can cause some very bad danger. Now, I'm telling you this to let you know about it, but unlikely could happen. Back in the old days when people were reloading a lot, it happened a lot, but you got to be careful. So audibly, we want to listen, and if something doesn't sound exactly right, then we need to check it before we. How do we check something like that? What do we do first? Magazine out first. Then we rack the slide to make sure it's empty. Then you can take a pen and the front, make it sure it's out, pointed out in the safe direction, push the pen all the way through. If it goes all the way through to your hand, then you know there's no projectile in the barrel itself. It got out or something happened to it. But if it's physically blocked, then you know you saved your life there. And I'm getting a little carried, but it can happen. There's been people really hurt with guns that blow up like that because of squid load like that. Be honest with you, I'm 13, 14 years in the business, and I've seen it maybe once, and we caught it before it actually got another one. And now I've read stories, terrible stories, about weapons and rifles and all kinds of stuff happening. It can happen, but don't say it can't. But I've never seen it myself, but that doesn't mean anything. But you can audibly hear it. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate you, Rob. Yeah, thank you, Rob. I appreciate you mentioning that, buddy. Thank you. Rick Shepard, how you doing, buddy? Good seeing you. I don't care if you're late, buddy. Just show up. That's all I want you to do, man. Jose M. from New York City. Welcome. Yeah, Rob says you want jams, go with a 22. Yeah, the problem with 22 is that it is a light slide, so it can't take any thumbing on the side. 2, when we talk about burns, right? In the range, when we shoot 9mm all day, we can sweep up at the end and there's powder on the ground. But when you get a 22, you're 60% burn with a 20. That means 40% of the powder that's in a 22 is in the air and on the floor and in your gun. So you got to clean your 22s continuously or it will not. You will not honestly be able to run that gun very long if you don't clean it. Frank Perez, thank you very much for being here as well, sir. We appreciate you very much. Guys, as a firearms instructor, we do this every week. I thank you very much for being here. It makes so much for us. Sometimes we feel like we do this stuff and nobody's watching, but we see how much you stick with us and stay with us. It makes it makes me feel so much better. And I appreciate you very much. We got a lot of stuff coming, guys. You guys that are from other places and want to really do business with us, when I get this online training class finished up, it's going to be pretty cool. We've got a full course book we've done already with it. We're working on the beta group right now. We got 14 students. We're fine-tuning it. What's going to be cool about it is it's going to give them, you get the book, You get corresponding videos that are made right to this book. You can take this book, your videos, your cell phone to the range and be able to identify your problems, fix them, and become a better shooter. In this system we put together, I put thousands and thousands and thousands of brand new students through it, and each and every one of them come out and being more accurate with a pistol than they ever have. And these are brand new students. I mean green. So someone that has some experience are going to be able to go through this system on their own personal time. It's not going to be something, but the cool thing about it, not only are you going to get the system, you're going to, each person that buys into the program, you're going to get one-on-one calls with me, which we're doing with our, I've got the whole country basically. I got people in Florida, I got people in California, I got someone in Washington State, I got people in Boston, I got people in New York City, and they're all doing these online classes because what we want to do is give you something that you can work on your base, work on your time, work on your skills, and get something out of it. And 4 to 6 weeks, it's a nice little program for you, and it's going to give you everything you need, and you're going to have video attached to it. It's wonderful. It's better than I thought it was going to be. I didn't know how it was going to work properly, and the students are just shining. And I've got women and men in it right now, and we're able to put together this whole program. When it's launched, it's going to be game changer, man. It's going to be game changer. It's going to open up my business. It's going to make you a better shooter. If you guys are interested in anything like that, go ahead and put the yes down below, and when it comes up to a point where it's going to be available, I'm going to get out some of these at discounted prices for you guys to try them out and see what you think, because this 14 students right now are they're at their second week. Next Monday will be 2 full weeks these guys doing, and the first week we improved everyone's accuracy a lot, so I can't imagine what's going to happen in the next couple weeks with these guys. And we're going through the fundamentals and educating them on how to go. So we got a lot of neat stuff coming, guys. We appreciate you being here this evening. It is Tuesday. You know what Tuesday means. Tuesdays is taco nights, and it's time for me to go home and see Mrs. Johnson. I love you guys very much. Thank you again for always being here. Until next week, God bless, be safe, and remember, you are your first line defense. Bye-bye, guys. See you next Tuesday.